The honourable member for Essex has the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for all the fantastic work that you've done in this House in the absence of our Speaker, and it was certainly wonderful to see him back here this week. Incredibly proud of you, sir, and incredibly proud of how you've helped the decorum of this House. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I'm lucky enough again to stand to another private member's bill, and it just happens to be the member for Windsor West who's in this chamber this evening. And you know, before I get started in speaking in favor of Bill C-248, I got to tell you a quick story, Mr. Speaker. So I was elected in 2019, and shortly after the election, myself, the member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington, and the member for Windsor West, we ended up in the Toronto airport, Pearson Airport. We were stuck in a snowstorm. And previous to that, I had never had an opportunity to meet the member for Windsor West. And so we decided, because the airplanes weren't flying and we couldn't get on a train, that we would take an Uber through one of the ugliest snowstorms that I've seen in recent history. And I got to know the member for Windsor West quite well. And so today, and by the way, Mr. Speaker, you never know where life's going to take you. And so it was a fantastic, about 6.5-hour drive, I think it was, and got to know the member quite well. And so, Mr. Speaker, on top of that story, I also want to tell you another story, Mr. Speaker. And perhaps, just perhaps, if we went to the history books to find out, perhaps the Guinness Book of World Records for Canada. Ironically, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking to the private member's bill this evening, and ironically, Mr. Speaker, he's speaking to my private member's bill on Friday. I don't know the last time, Mr. Speaker, that two neighboring MPs actually have private member's bill in the same week. And if we can get the support of this House, hopefully they'll both be voted on next Wednesday at committee. So with no further ado, Mr. Speaker, I want to address Bill C-248. And I guess before I would address that, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest this. I believe I've done my due diligence. When I say that, Mr. Speaker, this bill is to create, well, the green space is already there, but it's literally an act to amend the Canada National Parks Act, specifically, Speaker, the Ojibway National Urban Park of Canada. And so for those that don't know the riding of Essex and the riding of Windsor West, Windsor-Tecumseh, we're somewhat landlocked, Mr. Speaker, in that our only way out is across the Ambassador Bridge, apparently by 2025, soon to be the Gordie Howe International Bridge, and or through my other neighbor from Chatham-Kent-Leamington. But other than that, we're surrounded by 3 bodies of water. And so land is, well, to say the least, expensive. It's prime real estate, and opportunities for our constituents to get out to and appreciate Mother Nature at its finest is at a very premium cost, Mr. Speaker. And so what the member here, and why I'm supporting this to send it to committee, is because I've done my due diligence, Mr. Speaker. I have spoke to the Mayor of LaSalle, Mayor Bondi. I've met in his office. And Mayor Bondi said, Chris, at the end of the day, there's really no development around this area that can happen anyways. And if it could happen, the cost of permitting and the cost of the red tape would be so incredibly high that it's not going to happen anyways. And then I ironically ran into Mayor Dilkins I believe it was last Thursday, up in the city of Windsor. Mayor Dilkins is the mayor for the city of Windsor. And I asked him, Mayor, I'm going to be speaking to this bill next week, Bill C-248. Tell me one more time, are you or are you not in favor? And he said, absolutely, I am in favor of this bill. And so why was I so happy to speak to it tonight? And it's because it goes back to the conversation of green green space. But it also goes back, Mr. Speaker, to the conversation of mental health. We need to get people outdoors. We need to get families away from their televisions. We need to get people active, and through that activeness, we have healthy, happy people that just might see a white-tailed deer, Mr. Speaker. It might see one of the endangered eastern fox snakes, which doesn't necessarily excite me, Mr. Speaker, because I'm not necessarily a snake lover, but we're certainly going to respect and protect. And something else it'll do, Mr. Speaker, it'll create tourism. Tourism for Essex, tourism for Windsor West, tourism for Windsor Tecumseh. Because we now have an opportunity for our friends in Michigan, our friends in Ohio, in upstate New York, our friends in Wisconsin, and by the way, the opportunities are endless, to come over to a really, really unique, really neat national park. Mr. Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Essex is truly a microcosm of Canada. It always has been. Whatever you can find throughout Canada, you will find in Essex, Mr. Speaker. I guess the only fly in that ointment, Mr. Speaker, is the land, is the vast, beautiful land. So this gives an opportunity specifically to the residents of LaSalle to get out and enjoy the outdoors. My only concern, Mr. Speaker, with Bill C-248 that I see to date, otherwise, is the fact that we need to ensure that we keep the arteries opened. And when I say the arteries, Mr. Speaker, and this is not a prop, Mr. Speaker, this is purely a map. And I really hope that when it is studied at committee, that Malden Road and Matchett Road both remain open corridors for the folks that need to get into the cities, that need to get to the Stellantis plants, that need to get to the new $5 billion battery plants that are now being built as we speak in Windsor. And those are the people that need to make sure that we save them time and we save them money. And after they have a hard day's work, they can get home to be with their family. But I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, this information has been, quite frankly, exhaustive. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, I'm so proud to stand here today because the previous member, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I retract that statement. 2 previous members ago, the member for Essex, Mr. Watson, actually worked incredibly hard on this bill as well. So, Mr. Watson, thank you, and I hope you get an opportunity to see this. Mr. Speaker, I will tell this House through you, Mr. Speaker, and I could go on all the paperwork. I have a letter from the City of Windsor, the Council of Windsor, unanimously saying, please do it. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Windsor. What I'm saying is we've done our due diligence. I have a letter from the Wildlands League that I could read and I don't have time, asking to please send this to committee. Really, really neat, Mr. Speaker. I have a letter from the Caldwell First Nation, from Chief Mary Duckworth, from April 11th, 2022, Mr. Speaker, who has said Caldwell First Nation has been involved with the Ojibway Urban National Park project since 2019, and we would like to ensure these lands are protected for future generations. Mr. Speaker, it's amazing how fast 10 minutes go in this House of Commons. Blows my mind. The last thing I would say, Mr. Speaker, is this. I visited a home in LaSalle 2.5 weeks ago, and I stood in the backyard and I asked the homeowner, beautiful, beautiful place, what he thinks about this, Mr. Speaker. And he said, you know, it can't be developed anyways. It's a great opportunity for the residents of LaSalle. It's a great opportunity for folks to get out, to get active, to maybe smile once again, to get away from the negativity. And I'll leave you with one final thought, Mr. Speaker. Not all, but usually all we hear in this House, Mr. Speaker, is the negative side of things. Here's a conservative incredibly excited to help out a member of the New Democratic Party because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for our region. And I would ask that this bill gets sent to committee to be studied. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. Well, I thank the member for his intervention. Of course, the buttering up was really cool at the beginning as well. Got him a whole extra 4 or 5 seconds. Reprise